Hi, this is Linda Ferguson. I'm doing a series on emotional intelligence that will help you find greater peace in your life, perhaps bring some more balance into your life, and allow you to develop yourself both personally and professionally. I developed the emotional intelligence series through the corporate training work that I did, and now I'm going to share those with you in this video series. This is the second part of a 5-part series. In the first video, I talked about self-awareness as the first step for emotional intelligence. In that video, which you can review on my YouTube channel, you're able to see and learn that our emotions come from inside of us. They're not out there someplace. Now the beauty is that because our emotions are inside of us, we can control them and regulate them and choose what we want to do about it. That's where the second part comes, self-regulation. I also talked about the difference between our judgments and our feelings, and I'm going to address that a little bit more in this video as well. So in this video we're going to talk about self-regulation, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the initial research that was done in developing some of the ideas that we have on emotional intelligence. Some of the early research on brain injuries were very important in helping us understand emotional intelligence. When they learned that people who had strokes or brain injuries with lesions in certain parts of the brain not only couldn't do the cognitive thinking, some of the language skills or the reasoning skills, but they also had a hard time understanding, expressing, or identifying their emotions. The researchers really started to understand there's a big link between what we think and what we feel. Now, most people have grown up with the idea of either I'm a rational thinking person or I'm an emotional feeling person. This brain research shows that we are absolutely both and that they're absolutely interconnected in our brain, hardwired, if you will, neurologically and biochemically. So while, at least here in the West, Rene Descartes sort of set us on this trajectory of valuing our thoughts more than our feelings when he said, I think, therefore I am. The truth of the matter is, I feel, therefore I am, is just as true. What we feel, what emotions come up for us, is just as important and affects how we think. So with emotional intelligence, what we're trying to do is to get a better understanding of what our emotions are. Then we can choose how we want to respond. We can make better decisions, and we can have a better response rather than just those knee-jerk emotional responses that we might regret or we wish we hadn't done. As we look at our self-regulation then, one of the things that's important to remember is that here in the neocortex part where that thinking and that rational skills happen, those are going to be very much affected by excessive emotional flooding of what might happen back here in the amygdala. Now the lower part of the brain, what some people refer to as the reptilian brain, or just that older evolutionarily primal part of our brain, that's where we have that fight or flight response, that very instinctive knee-jerk reaction, that protective mode. So you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. Your initial reaction may be fight or flight. You're going to hit the brakes or you're going to steer away from it. That's that first response, and there's probably going to be some emotional flooding going on there for you. Now what you want to do is you want to bring that down. You want to de-escalate some of those emotions so that you can then start to make some wise decisions, right? You don't want to maybe immediately shout some response to the person who cut you off. How do you de-escalate those emotions so that your response can be more intelligent, more wise? I'm going to offer a couple tips for you. When you find yourself getting really worked up, maybe getting really stressed out and tense, and you can even feel it in your body, doing some kind of a breath exercise allows you to de-escalate that biochemical response, get you back down from that fight or flight response, and allows you to open up your body so you're not so tense. Some people think even just breathing deeply for 5 seconds is enough to create a bit of a gap between what your emotional response is, that instinctive fight or flight, and allowing the neocortex to kick in gear a little bit. Another breathing exercise that I like to use is involving 2 counts of deep breathing, breathing in for 2 and breathing out for 2. Then breathing in for 4 counts and breathing out for 4 counts. Then breathing in for 6 counts slowly breathing out for 6 counts slowly, breathing in for 8 counts maybe even, and breathing out for 8 counts. By the time you get done doing that, your body is going to be more relaxed. Your mind is going to have more of a chance of getting some of those emotions that flooding out of your system, and you're going to be much more open and able to respond in a way that you can make a wise decision about what you're doing. Another technique that you can use to bring yourself back into your body and give you a chance to de-escalate some of those extra biochemicals and hormonal responses is to do a body scan. And I don't recommend this to do while you're driving, although you can do it with your eyes open. I think it's better to do it with your eyes closed. So let's say you're talking on the phone and you find yourself getting really irritated or upset. Maybe you're talking to your husband or your wife or your parents or your children or a coworker, and you just can tell that you're just starting to get really, really worked up. Do a body scan with your eyes open or closed. I like it with my eyes closed because that really helps me go deeper with this activity. Close your eyes and breathe into your feet and your toes. And then bring that up and breathe into your knees, and notice where there's any kind of tension or a block. Breathe into your hips or your thighs. Breathe deeply there, depending upon where you hold that tension. Moving up your body into your abdomen, maybe your stomach's gotten kind of tense. Just breathe even and open that up. Moving all the way up into your head. Of course, you could start at your head and work down, it doesn't matter. But doing that kind of a breathing body scan allows you to open up, allows you to stretch a little bit. You may even move your shoulders or your knees or your toes, your ankles as you're doing this. It allows you to give more oxygen into your body, and it just gives you more of that space so that you're moving away from that knee-jerk reaction, that fight or flight response, that anxiety or panic response, giving yourself a chance to make some conscious choices, some rational choices about what you want to say or do next. So breathing exercises or body scan, very, very important for self-regulation. Another tip that you can use, and this is another strategy that I found to be really helpful. When you find yourself getting upset, and we talked about this in the first video, pay attention to what you're feeling and what your judgments are. 9 times out of 10, the reason we're feeling upset about something, or the reason we're having that emotional response, particularly if there's a really sharp emotional sting, is because we're making some sort of judgment or conclusion or telling a story. We've made this story up in our head about what somebody did or didn't do, right? You disrespect me, you don't care, you're inconsiderate, I'm such a failure. Ooh, there's a big one. I'm not good enough, right? So there can be judgments about ourselves as well. Here's what I want you to do. When you're aware of those judgments, I want you to hold them out sort of here as if they're detached a little bit from who you are. And the way that you can do that is to say, I'm aware that I'm thinking the thought, I'm not good enough, you're not good enough, you're lazy, whatever is that thought. I'm aware that I'm thinking the thought of, and then say what that thought is. That's your story. When you hold that story out there, it starts to lose some of its power. And you can start to question it. Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm thinking the thought that I'm not good enough. Now what do I want to do with that? Now I can make some choices. Now I can make some rational decisions around that thought. Because that's all that is it's a thought, and I can hold it out there separate from my emotions. As we become aware that we're thinking the thought, we can then start to ask ourselves, what do I want to do with that thought? How is that thought serving me? How do I want to release that thought? Do I want to keep that thought? Is that thought even true? Am I making up this story and I don't have any basis for that thought really even being true? Once we start to have that kind of a dialogue, we're able to detach a little bit and our emotions will start to come back into balance. So I hope this video has helped you a little bit in learning some breathing techniques, learning body scanning, and being aware that you're thinking the thought. All of those are some tips that you can use to regulate your emotions, to help you find greater balance in your life, and to perhaps help you move a little bit forward to having some more inner peace.